Hey, welcome back. I hope you're doing well. If you're new here, my name is Sathya. I'm a photographer and a filmmaker. This series, A Conversation With, is quite close to my heart, and it's my attempt at having in-depth conversations with artists that I admire. Today's episode, we have Freya Najade, who is a wonderful photographer, and to borrow what AMP, the agency that represents Freya, said, she illuminates overlooked beauty in the commonplace. And that's an accurate description of what I feel like when I'm looking at her work. She's won numerous awards, have exhibited all over the world. She's got 3 wonderful books to her name, and I'm so grateful that she agreed to be a part of this series. We discuss her beginnings, importance of her education when it comes to her photography, combination of her personal work and professional work, what influences her, and many other things that touch on her creativity and creative industry in general. Normally, I film during these conversations as well, but Freya was not too keen on being filmed, which I totally respect. So we met at a park, we stuck a mic on each of us, and we walked about for a couple of hours. So you will hear ambient sounds throughout our conversations that were there in the park as we were walking around and talking. I was nervous at the beginning about the whole process, but I'm quite happy with the overall outcome. If you're watching this, there will be some London clips overlaid to our conversation, so you're not looking at a blank screen. But more importantly, when we talk about Freya's projects and her books, you will be able to see the images from her work and the specific body of work we're talking about, because I've overlaid them on the video. So make sure to turn to the screen for those segments at least. All right, let's get to it. You switch back and forth between London and Hamburg?
So I moved to London in 2008.
Yeah.
And I actually also came to do my master's here.
Yeah.
Which I did at London College of Communication.
Right.
Yes, since before that I had a very different career.
Uh-huh.
I first studied to be a special needs teacher.
A special needs teacher, wow, okay.
Yeah, so very different.
Yeah.
But during my studies, I realized how much I love photography.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but it never really had crossed my mind to be able to do it professionally.
Right.
And then after I finished my university, I went to San Francisco for a year.
Yeah.
And there I took photography classes.
Okay.
And then I realized that's what I really want to do professionally.
Wow.
And
what kind of a photography class was that? Is it with a photographer that, like a famous photographer, or
it was kind of like the beginning to get into to study photography, but it was quite a rigid system in the US at the time, or at that college.
Okay.
That you had to, you had to first do, we needed to learn, it makes me sound now very ancient, but we had to learn how to develop film.
Okay.
And we were shooting in black and white,
right.
Which I didn't like at the time.
Okay.
I felt really, I still, with black and white, I'm still not, for me, I love others work in black and white, but I still, for myself, have problems to shoot exclusively in black and white.
Right.
Anyway, so at the time also, I was kind of not so into that, but still I did realize I love photography.
Yeah.
And
that was a class, and then did you continue to do?
It was different classes. It was all sorts of different classes.
Oh, okay.
It was
kind
of like
classes.
Yeah, I can't really remember what the system was. It wasn't like a BA, but it was sort of like an introduction program to photography.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was kind of like, to be able to stay in the US, I had to take some classes, and then I thought, okay, I do photography, I always liked that.
Yeah.
And then it really clicked, and I thought, wow, that's what I really want to do, actually.
Yeah. When you said clicked, what do you remember when, and what was the moment?
Oh, I don't know. I can't really, I don't think it was like a specific moment, I must say, but it was more like that I thought, wow, this is, I don't know, I just really felt, yeah.
You felt happy doing it?
I felt just so super passionate about it, and I felt like that's what I want to do. And then I put together like a portfolio, or I worked on a portfolio.
Yeah.
And I applied for my master's here, and I got straight in. And for me, that was like, wow, amazing. Like also not doing a BA, and I didn't really expect that. And then from then on, I sort of was a photographer.
Right.
I mean, then after the master's, it was more obviously like everyone I think who finishes their masters, it's not easy after the masters. So I kind of in the masters I did feel that's what I really want to do.
Yeah.
And right now I want to be a photographer. And I remember during my masters, like our teacher said, I don't know, like we were like 27 people. He's like, probably like 4 people of you will be able to work as a photographer. I was like, what?
Oh, wow.
Or like full time as a photographer.
Right.
And
did that happen? Did that come true? Do you guys keep in touch?
I think in a way it comes true in the sense of people also doing their own work. I think there are like also some people who still do something with photography.
Yeah.
But it's just very far removed from documentary photography or whatever. Wedding photography, that some people do wedding photography.
Right.
Or other commercial photography.
And you were always passionate about with doing documentary style photography, or did it change at some point?
No, I was always like super passionate about that. But so just to finish that also, so after my master's it was just also very difficult to really dive into this full-time photography also as I imagined it.
Right.
So eventually actually I realized I was just looking for jobs and I was not really producing any work anymore.
Right.
Any personal work anymore.
Right.
And for me that is something very important to keep the personal work going. Then I actually went back to part-time teaching also again initially.
Okay.
And I continued my own work.
Yeah.
And then I gradually faded that out and I did more and more photography. Yeah, I always felt passionate about documentary photography, but also in general, I do feel like I love photography so much that it doesn't matter if you send me to, I don't know, photograph a car, I would still enjoy it, you know?
Right.
So I am quite open in that. I mean, I think it depends how long then I would do that. If I would just photograph cars every day, I probably would also get bored.
Right.
But so at some point I had like an architectural photography commission. Wow. And I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And my partner was an architect.
Okay.
And then the idea was born that I'm like, why don't we do architectural photography together?
Nice.
And so actually then for a long time, like for, I don't know, probably like 8 years, we had like an architectural photography studio together.
Right.
And I did like we were like traveling around the world to photograph like innovative architecture. I mean, our clients were based in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
But we were going to China and the US and Kazakhstan, so very different places.
Wow.
And that was really, I really enjoyed that a lot also. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But the idea was for me always that I do that and then I do my personal work on the side. Right. But it kind of took over my life. And it was very, very difficult to continue my own work.
Right.
And
how long did that go on for, not doing personal work and immersing yourself fully in architectural photography?
I mean, I think it was gradually fading out, my personal work.
Right.
So I think then probably like for 4 years it was very, I don't know, I mean, I wouldn't say I didn't do any. I always then said, okay, today I'm going, but then you have maybe a week time to do something.
Yeah.
And then I was so busy again, and then I picked it up a few months later. So it was just very,
Right.
very slow. So I guess it was never the point that I didn't do any anymore, but it was just a very little part of my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then in the pandemic, I focused more on my personal work again, obviously, because I didn't do the commercial work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I realized, okay, yeah, no, I need to continue that.
Yeah.
And so since then, then we faded out the architecture photography, and I did more other commercial work in photography. And so,
Okay.
yeah.
Maybe the other ones were less demanding than the architectural ones and took less of your time.
I don't know, I wouldn't say less demanding. Yeah, I guess it's, I don't know how I would describe that. I think firstly it also took quite a lot of energy to set it up.
Right.
To, get something off the ground is always like...
Takes ages.
It's a
and
big
takes
effort.
a lot, yeah.
So that was just a very intense phase.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we were just so happy that actually it was rolling and we had like a lot of jobs, And I think here it is much more like now it's for me much more intertwined, like that I do a shoot and it is more related also to my own work.
Right.
And it's a very different mindset I'm in.
Okay. Do you still have the architectural photography firm, or is that?
I mean, it's not active as such. I mean,
Okay.
it's still, we didn't it was a partnership. We didn't close it because we still license images.
Fair enough.
And things like that, but it's not, and some of our clients are like begging, please, can you not do this one? And I don't know. Part of me sometimes I think maybe should we do that just one? I don't know, but so it's not completely closed.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I want to quickly go back to the masters that you did, and I want to ask how has that helped you after you did the masters? What skills or what ways of thinking helped you with you being a photographer?
I think for me it was because I didn't have any photography formal education before. I think what I really learned in the masters is to work on a project. I think before that I like photography and I photographed I had like maybe a mini series, but to
Right.
work like on a longer project.
Yeah.
I think that's what I really learned in the masters. And I think a masters is it's such a very personal thing. I really don't think, because I'm asked often by students also, like, do you think I need to do a master's? And I always
Right.
feel like it's a very personal
Of course.
decision, because I don't think that one needs a master at all in photography. I really think you
Right.
can be a great photographer without having any education in photography, in fact. So,
Right.
but I think for me at the time it was great because I also took that year to just focus on that. To really, I freed everything to just do that. Also to have, to kind of have the feedback of others. I think that was for me something very important, and to also have the speakers that came in, which I found very inspiring also. To really learn like so many different approaches also in documentary photography. I mean, for me it was very inspiring and important.
Fair. Let's get there. Let's let them pass.
Like in an American soap, or when you say something and then they're like all laughing. To be able to really do a longer term project, that's something I completely learned there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you that doing a master's is a personal choice, and you can't advise whether it would be good for others or not.
Yeah, exactly. And
that's fair.
also when I did it wasn't so expensive.
Right.
So I feel now, I find it's even more difficult to advise someone to do it.
There's a lot of
because
financial
it's
capital.
so much. I don't know. Like if
upfront.
I think now of the price it would cost now and what I got out of it, still it was for me very good. But it weighs heavier then.
True. I don't know how much these things cost in the States. I know here it's more expensive than it was before, but it's not that expensive. And US is always generally more expensive than here. So Yeah. Anyway, what was the first personal project you started after you came away from masters, or what was your first personal project, long form?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I think the first one I did start in the masters, which was If You're Lucky You Get Old. That was like my
Yes.
final project.
Yes.
And even though it wasn't so long, I'm still amazed how fast I did it. It took me like 7 weeks to photograph it.
You did all that in 7 weeks?
Yeah.
I saw the images. They were so beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm still thinking like, wow, how did I do that? And yeah, I guess the pressure of the master, and I had this amount of time. I
Right.
mean, I was a lot in crisis at the time,
Right,
finding
right.
people and developing the project, because I didn't know at all how the project would look like.
Right.
I had during the masters the idea to do something about queer seniors.
Yeah.
Because at the time I felt like a lot of people think of queer people more of young people, maybe of middle-aged people. But I thought it's not so much that one associates gay people and old age.
Right. Right.
I think that has changed a little bit now, but it's still not so much in people's head, but I think it got a little bit better. So I thought originally to do like a project about that, and I would find a couple and I photograph their life. And I
Right.
still didn't know how it exactly would look like.
Right.
But then when I was in the US, I felt it didn't really work. I kind of thought, okay, to photograph somebody's life, so that's sort of what's the story? I don't
Right.
know.
Right.
And also to find some, I mean, I had like a couple I photographed, but I felt it didn't really work as such. And then I started first like in a gay senior home, and I interviewed like a lot of different people, and I was really thinking like, what am I looking for?
Right.
And then I met Dennis, one of the characters,
Yeah.
and he told me his story, and that was for me a moment it sort of clicked, and I thought that's an interesting story. Maybe I could actually find other stories
Yeah.
of people. And then I went to senior centers. I interviewed like a lot of different people.
Yeah.
And then in the end, I did feel it wasn't for me anymore about like queer and old age. It was for me much more about like to challenge the stereotypes of old age in general.
Right.
I still feel it was important for me like to have queer people in it, but to have it like just on the side, not to make it seem as something special, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So it started off as one idea, and as you started making work for it, it just evolved into what it is now.
Exactly. So, and that was like my first, what I really felt was my first personal project.
Yeah.
Or a longer personal project, even though it was quite fast.
The images are really beautiful. Like
Thank you.
I've looked at them, and it's great that was the first one. That was a good one to start.
That was, So then I was working on Hidropark.
Okay.
No, actually, then I started working on strawberries for winter, which was like about farming. I had this idea to do something about farming and food production. Where does our food come from? And I think at the time I also didn't know at all who I wanted to be or who I was as a photographer. Not that it's ever completely solid clarified.
Yeah.
But I think I was much more open because I liked so many different approaches.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for instance, when I photographed strawberries in winter, and I thought I wanted to do something about food production, I was very open how I would actually photograph it. I also didn't know what would be the outcome of the project. I think that has been often the case when I started photographing something that I didn't know in the end, this is how it will look. I'm generally always quite open when I start a series.
Right. This was this still in the States, or were you back?
I'm back. Yeah, I'm back.
In Europe, okay.
No, I'm back. So, and that was kind of where does our food come from? And I photographed different sites where the food is produced in Europe.
Yeah.
And one site was actually in the Ukraine, in Kiev.
Wow.
That's when I came across Hidropark, like this park in the middle of Kiev where like people go on weekends, and like it's sort of like a leisure park.
Okay.
It's like an old amusement complex from Soviet times also, but also now newer bars have been popping up. I mean, before the war, I don't know how it is now, but there was sort of the development at the time that was the Soviet style,
Right.
and then also, more newer bars.
How, like the strawberries in the winter project, how long did that take you to complete?
I think it took me like 2 or 3 years, but I mean, that's sort of, as I say, doing also, then I was working parallel on Hidropark.
Right.
I was also parallel doing commercial work, so it's not like I was just doing that.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And also because I was photographing different sites all over Europe, so it's,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, you could do it all in 4 weeks if you all set it up properly and you have someone who's doing all the arrangements for you.
I mean, a project takes however long it takes, and as you said, like I think most photographers work in a similar way, that there's not just one project at any given time. Sometimes it's multiple. Like I know the first time you did, you know, if you're lucky, you get old. There was a deadline because you were doing it for your masters. But on the next project, there wasn't a deadline. How did you know when it was okay? This is complete now. This is done.
I think for me, I do feel also at some point emotionally. I mean, I think at some point I feel like, okay, the story is there, and then I at some point I just feel I'm done. I just can't do it anymore. And I think obviously then if you feel it's not done, if the project isn't finished, to be honest, it hasn't happened so much that I really like. I think with strawberries in winter, it was a bit the case of that I felt I'm sort of done with it emotionally.
Okay.
But I had like 12 images,
Right.
which I felt worked.
Yeah.
And for me, it felt it was enough to have a complete series.
Right.
I do feel I could have continued it, and I do think like it had potential to become something bigger.
Right.
But I felt it told a story. Those images told the story enough, and also I felt like I just couldn't do it anymore.
That's fair.
And then along the Hackney Canal and the Hackney Marshes, it was very good because I had a publisher. I had Hoxton Mini Press with whom I was working.
Right.
And so it was very much also guided by them, because in both cases I showed them projects that were not finished.
Right.
And I also, I mean, I wasn't done. I felt I wanted to do more.
Yeah.
I guess in those projects it was more that we had a deadline because of the publishing.
Right. Right.
But also I did feel, well, I guess no, I mean, that's not true. I think both of the projects I could have continued a bit more also.
You're talking about the Hackney Projects?
Yeah. The along the Hackney Canal, the Hackney Marshes.
Hackney Marshes, yeah.
I think I could have also done some more work on it.
Yeah. Another like beautiful bodies of work, both of them. Like I think that's how I got to know your work. I was following, I still do, Hoxton Mini Press, and they shared that, you know, Marsha's book is coming out, and I was like, oh, this is gorgeous. How, like, when did you start it? How did that come about?
Yeah, so basically I had images for along the Hackney Canal, or I had images I took around the canals, and I thought at some point this could actually be a book.
Yeah.
And then I saw the books of Hoxton Mini Press, and I thought, wow, that would work really nicely in their line.
Right.
And then I saw that there was a portfolio review in Hackney.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh wow, and he was reviewing, and I thought I want to really show them the work.
Right.
Which was very much at the time still quite broad, I must say. So and he really liked it, and he's like, okay, I really would love to do a book if my wife agrees.
Okay.
Because they're doing it together.
Right.
And she also really liked it, and then from there we they made a first edit also of the images. They felt they worked.
Yeah.
And then I worked like for a few more months on the series.
Right.
And the book came out, which was great.
Yeah.
And that was in 2016. After that, sort of my journey also started with the architectural photography, and I was very involved in that.
Right.
And but I was still photographing, like also in the marshes actually.
Yeah.
I had a dog, or I have a dog. I got a dog.
Okay.
And I kind of sometimes took my camera with me.
Right.
But yeah, you know, I said before, like I stopped I photographed very little during when I did the architectural photography. But that was for me something very much on the side. That I would take my dog and then I would take some photos in the marshes.
Wow.
But then at some point I did feel, maybe that could also become another series.
Yeah.
And
But
then
this one focused more on the Hackney Marshes.
exactly. And then when the pandemic happened, then I was focusing like a lot on that series. That I thought, okay,
Right.
first of all, it changed a lot the marshes during the time that there were all of a sudden like a lot of people.
Right.
Right. And then also I had a lot of time.
Yeah.
So so that was good. So, and that's how the other book happened. And then I worked on it and I showed it to Martin again and Anne from Hoxton Mini Press, and again they really liked it. So we did the second book.
Oh, beautiful. The light in some of those images are gorgeous. Like
Thank
people hanging out by the little body of water or whatever it was. I can't remember the name of that. But like, another gorgeous body of work. I had a question written down, and so I'm gonna pull out my paper.
Sounds good.
There are some images in the Hackney Marshes project that took my breath away when there was a image of a tree with like a really curved trunk, and like the image is filled with just green leaves, and just that few more images from that series. And I'm just curious, in terms of noticing things, is that like a conscious choice of, you know, maybe practicing day in, day out, or does that happen in post? Like maybe you've taken an image and then you say, actually, this would look better if it's cropped this way? Or do you take an image and then you go back and you develop it and you look at it and then actually I need to go back and take it? Like how, like is there one process, or how does that work, or is it all intuitive?
I think, unfortunately, it's more all intuitive.
Okay.
I think it's...
the question was way longer than the answer.
Well, I think partly it is like knowing the area, partly it is also over time realizing certain ways the light falls maybe.
Right.
But it's not so much that I'm trying to think that I photographed something like twice, and I felt like I wanted to get a better shot of it. I can't really think of that I went back to something. I mean, maybe I passed, because as I said, it was like that I walked a lot in the marshes, and maybe I came across something like again. I mean, obviously I came across a lot of things again, and I also saw what I also really like about that project, that I saw how the seasons changed.
Right.
The things, the nature, like, you know, that I would come across like a certain tree, and then all of the sudden it would be full of spider nets.
Yes,
and all of the sudden, I don't know, there would be blossoms. So I did love really paying attention to these small things that changed over time.
Right.
I think then also, for instance, for the image that is on the cover where the light is in the river, I think that was something, for instance, I had noticed that at a certain time of the day, like the sun hits, it's just basically just lighting up the river. It's sort of just in that perspective, so that on the sides, it's the shores are quite dark, but the river is lit.
Right.
And I really loved that. So I mean, that was something that I went a few times at that time, and I thought it would be nice to get a shot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but otherwise it's very much really slowing down and photographing everything also that I'm drawn to.
Right.
And not to be and also to be open about it, not to kind of think, that's stupid, to kind of really think, okay, these three on the side of the river I like, and I photograph it, and to be sort of in the flow.
Yeah.
And that's why I also really love shooting on that project is mainly shot on medium format film.
Right.
And for me that was a perfect medium, because I felt that it slowed me down
Yeah.
enough to kind of be conscious about what I photograph, but not to slow me down to overthink things too much.
Right.
Like, because I also always loved the idea of me being a large format photographer. It just doesn't work for me, because whenever
Right.
I start overthinking things too much, that I kind of think, okay, is that really the right angle for that flower? Is that really the right angle for that person? And I stop feeling anything because I'm overthinking. And I think that's another thing what I meant, just I photograph, trying not to judge, to really
Right.
trust my intuition.
Right.
And I think that's with medium format also for me a very good medium.
Ah, beautiful. There was another image in that series with a person with a butterfly.
Ah, yeah.
That was a butterfly, right?
There was a butterfly, yeah.
How did you just see that person there, or were you already having a conversation? And what was the story? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so it was, I don't know, I was actually photographing something else in the bushes, and it was a group of people actually.
Okay.
And I heard them, and then I went close to them, and then I saw there was a butterfly. I'm like, amazing.
Yeah.
And I was like, can I photograph that butterfly? But the butterfly was obviously, it was also medium format.
Yeah.
Manual focus. So it was, I don't know, it was sitting on somebody and I didn't manage.
Right.
And so it took me quite a few shots, and then it landed on the head of this guy. And I'm like, wait, let me get that. And yeah.
That's cool. Cool.
I got that actually.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
so it's just really being open to things that are happening around me.
Yeah. And you're working on another project on Hackney Colours.
Hackney Colours, exactly. So yeah, after those two projects about the Hackney Canal and the Hackney Marshes, I felt I wanted to do something more about the urban side of Hackney.
Yeah.
And to photograph or focus more on the diversity, and also to, in a way, archive like a moment in Hackney before it is completely gentrified.
Yes.
And initially, also going back to the very beginning, initially I also thought maybe I shoot it in black and white, because I do feel drawn to, I think also obviously it's at the moment a big trend in photography. I find that more and more people shoot black and white, and I do feel more attracted to it.
Right.
And then I don't know, I think for me the key image was that image of Chiara, like this girl with blue hair, and in front of the red garage doors.
Yeah.
And I really liked it, and I thought, okay, so if I do it, and then I put it in black and white, and obviously it doesn't work. I mean, it's still quite an okay image, but it really, the color adds so much to the image.
Yes.
That I felt, okay, no, I can't do this series in black and white.
Right.
And then somehow I thought, okay, actually Colours is also such a leitmotif. It's sort of such a, it's in a way a thing that holds the whole series together. And at the same time, I feel it's also like a metaphor for all the different, for the vibrancy basically in Hackney.
Right.
So I thought, okay, my working title is like Hackney Colours.
Okay.
And actually it was always like a working title, but so far I haven't found a better one. So I think it probably will stay Hackney Colours, because I find it just quite suitable.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing how it evolves. Because that image of, did you say Chiara? That was selected for one of the...
Taylor Wessing.
Yes.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
Great. It was like one of my dreams come true. I mean, it was like something I always dreamt of, having like a photo exhibited in Taylor Wessing.
Yeah.
And it was the first time, actually I applied, I don't know, in 2010 once.
Right.
And it was like, so it was the second time after ages, and I just submitted that one image.
Yeah.
So I really didn't think at all I would get in. Not because the image is not good, but because so many people applied.
Yeah.
So I was very happy.
Yeah, especially now. I mean, 2010, it seems like it was yesterday, but it's quite a while ago. Yeah. But now, since like the like social media has grown so much, a lot more people know about it. Photography is a lot more accessible. So yeah, I mean that was, I was very happy when I saw that was selected. After Taylor Wessing, like, did you find opportunities come your way more, or did it not change? I know you didn't apply for that reason, but I'm curious, like, what these prizes, do they have an effect on photographers' careers afterwards?
I wouldn't say that actually that changed anything. No.
Right. Okay.
I think that specific thing didn't change anything. I do find more really like the publication of books has much more impact.
Right.
To be honest, any sort of longer publication, when more than one image of mine was published somewhere, that something came out of it. That,
Right.
for instance, that Hackney Colours was published in, what was the name? Let me actually quickly check that.
Yeah. No worries.
So you also had an image in Taylor Wessing.
No. I follow it, like, for the last 4 or 5 years. I've been following it. I did apply for it for the one that just happened, and I did not get in.
Yeah,
but it's for you, how it would be a dream come true for me if it does happen. But yeah, no, I didn't. Mine wasn't exhibited.
Yeah, and actually I didn't apply this year because I thought, well, they're not going to select me again, like in the following year.
Right.
And but actually other photographers were selected for the second time in a row. I was like, that was stupid thinking.
Missed chances.
Yeah. So for instance, in Framelines mag.
Framelines, yes.
Framelines, this series Hackney Colours was published.
Right.
And then an editor or somebody working at the Modern House saw it. Mm-hmm. And through that came like a commission with the Modern House. So I think things like that have proven for me more to lead to other work than just the publication of one image.
Yeah, that's good to know. And in terms of funding for your projects, these are all self-funded, right? I mean, I know you have a publisher that you regularly work with, but they are self-funded, or?
They're self-funded, yeah. I find for me that works sort of best. Like, I think to apply for funding is then another, like, a lot of time you put into that.
Right.
In which I prefer then to actually do work.
Yeah.
I mean, and so far I haven't done so complex projects. I mean, it's totally great also to do funding, and I think it's great if someone does it. Yeah. I think it also depends a bit what personality you are. Right. And also how much funding, how big is the project you are doing. Yes. So I think, I don't know, I don't want to say, because possibly I will do a more complex project in the future, and then yes, I guess I would definitely focus more on that. Yeah. So for the ones you've done so far, it just worked better for you to self-fund. That makes sense. Do you shoot film for all of it, or do you shoot digital as well, or? Not that one's better than other. We're not going to get into that. I'm just curious. For the personal work? Yeah, personal work. I shot, if you're lucky, you get all digital. Okay. Then Strawberries in Winter, I shot mostly on large format. Okay, wow. Yes. Then Just Arena, I shot again digital, and then the Hackney work is mostly done on film. Nice. But yeah, I just got a medium format digital camera, and it's also very nice. Which one did you get? The Fuji GFX. GFX? Oh, nice. I've heard great things about it. Yeah, and I have actually like an adapter for a contact lens. I mean, that's also very nice. So I think I will probably shoot less film in the future. But I still like it, and I still will do it. But it's just so similar and good. Yeah. And you will still retain some of that like manual focus experience if you're adapting contact lenses, and they're great lenses too. They're amazing. They're actually not they are not manual. What? No. You have an adapter that autofocuses them? Yeah. Oh, nice. I didn't know about this. Okay, that's cool. Yeah. Ah, nice. So the Hackney Colours, are you shooting that with the Fuji, or? No, I've shot that also mainly medium format, but I have gotten that the Fuji now a few months ago, and
Yeah.
I have used that more now. Yes, so I
Nice.
will definitely use that more. But I also do feel the Hackney Colours is now coming to an end, or let's say, I really also want to start something else.
Yeah.
I think the other one, the Hackney Colours, I don't know if I will also completely say, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Because also I'm also still living in Hackney, so it's also, you know, like I think
Right.
it's something probably I will continue
Yeah.
for a bit.
Mm.
But yeah, I do feel less of a drive to do it, and also I feel I have quite a body of work now that I feel, yeah, it's coming more to an end.
Do you have any ideas what the next one's gonna be?
I do, but it's, yeah, I think it's too early to
That's
share
fair.
it. But yeah,
That's
it's
fair.
sort of, it won't be about Hackney, just about Hackney. And I'm looking also more into telling more personal stories again of people.
Okay. Nice. Well, whatever it is,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm curious about editing process, not like image editing, but editing a body of work.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that? Like, what's your process?
Generally, I have been working like a lot that I lay out images in a book format,
Okay.
like that I had, even though I didn't think like, okay, this will be a book.
Yeah.
At the beginning, but that I feel it helps me putting images into an order, that I can also have images like images next to each other, so which images work together. So which images work together, and I did feel that helped me a lot,
Yeah.
getting like a feel for a story.
Mm.
I think now, but if I think now back of, for instance, the Hackney Colours series, I have done that less actually. So I think the way I edit is like also a lot that I come back obviously after a shoot. I select like the images I like the most,
Right.
and then I have a folder over time of like my favorite images.
Right.
And then at some point I do put it more like into a like an order,
Right.
like in a program, like as I said, like which I use for publishing books.
Right.
Where it's not I use it for publishing book. It's like a book software basically.
Okay. What's it called?
A blurb.
Blurb. Okay.
Yeah, so it's
okay,
a very
yeah.
old, and I haven't used it forever,
Right.
but I still have it on my computer, and I think I actually even have it like since If You're Lucky You Get Old at the time, like
Wow.
that I started using that software to just see,
Yeah.
okay, so that those images work, and then you can also add a little bit of text,
Yeah.
and yeah, that did help me a lot. But otherwise I can also, and maybe I just put them in an order for a website edit.
Mm.
But also even that also, because I also frequently post on Instagram, it also helps me like a lot to edit my work already. That
Okay.
I decide which images are my favorite images, which
Yeah.
images could work together.
Yeah.
Then obviously comes the longer edit of all the images together, but I think
Right.
that initially already helps me.
With the ones that you work with publishers, it's also the same process. Like you give them, okay, this is what the book's gonna be, and they publish that.
No, not at all. Like with the publishers, it's very different. That I give them the images, and they have an editor, and they make
got
editor
it.
designer, and she makes something completely different out of it.
Okay.
But it's for me initially, firstly, to make sense of something that I work like that
Right. Right. Right.
before I give it to anybody. And I mean, I would just. It's not true. I guess when I showed it the first time to Martin and Anne, I would show it probably in a software as such, and then I would send them all the single images,
Okay.
and they do something else. But then
It's more of a collaborative process now.
it's very collaborative. Then
Okay.
they would send me the first edit, and then I would say, okay, I like this, I don't like that,
Right.
and they're always, yeah, it's very cooperative. So then they would make changes.
Right.
And I think there are always some things, like sometimes I feel, okay, I really can't live with that. You need to change that.
Right.
And sometimes also they have something that I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure those two images, if they work together, yeah, definitely they need to stay.
Right.
So, and sometimes I guess we didn't get to a point that I felt, well, but I really can't live like that. So we didn't
Okay.
get to that point. So far it was always very
Yeah.
easy.
Okay. Well,
It was
that's
very,
nice.
very easy to work with them.
Do you have any suggestions or thoughts? Photographers that want to be working photographers. They could be students, they could be people like me who has a full-time job and and doing photography on the side. But what would you say, I want to be a working photographer? What are your, give me some tips or advice. What would you say?
So I think one thing could be like to, what I would advise is like to really always continue your personal work.
Right.
I think for the sake of the personal work and for your own sake to produce something meaningful, but also because it will lead to, if it's really good work, it will lead also to commissions and also to work you're probably very much more interested in.
Right.
But another way also could be like to, what I did initially, to do like, find like a part-time job and then, which takes off some pressure, and then you can also focus in the remaining time on your personal work.
Yeah.
But also to do completely other photography can also be helpful, like what I did also, that I did for a long time architectural photography.
Yeah.
Some other people do wedding photography, which I find quite hard.
Right.
Or like also event photography, things like that.
So have a side gig to begin with, whether it's on the photography side or not, so that it takes some pressure off.
Exactly.
And work on a personal body of work that you're interested in.
Exactly.
Got it. Yeah. Like I'm hearing more and more from working photographers like yourself that, it's not sustainable to put in a lot of pressure on at the beginning to make money on photography and be a working photographer, because then at some point you will stop enjoying what you're doing. And at the beginning it's like I did it for like a year and a bit where I tried all kinds of photography. And then in that time I ended up not shooting anything that I enjoyed shooting. And then I was pretty burnt out for a while.
Exactly.
Valuable advice.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I mean. What also happened to me before I then went back to part-time teaching.
Right. Do you, is that part of your life behind you now, the teaching and all that, or do you still go back to it in the photography side of things, maybe?
I love teaching photography. Going back to a school as such, also to teach photography, maybe to do like a course.
Yeah.
I love teaching, but to be employed as a teacher in a school, that part is, I think, behind me.
Fair enough.
But I have taught at ACC, I've done also courses in architectural photography and documentary photography.
Wow.
And I really love teaching photography.
Yeah.
That's also something else, what I could imagine doing more. And maybe when you start out, that's something a bit maybe too far, although maybe one could think into teaching in schools or...
Right. Do you think like maybe doing that online is something you would be interested in? Like, I don't know, YouTube videos or maybe even on your website, like releasing courses and things like that?
I've actually taught online. One of the courses was online in ACC.
Yeah.
And I much prefer in person, I must.
Right.
I much prefer to meet students and to... I think it's just different. Obviously, you talk also online.
Yeah.
But I do think the exchange is always a bit different than if you meet someone in person.
True.
Because there's just... I think when you meet a group, there's also energy. You kind of feel when to move on, when to...
Dive deep.
Exactly. Or
Yeah.
like also if you critique work of others or they critique each other, I think it's much nicer if you're around the table.
Right.
I mean, it's totally possible to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And I definitely also got used to it. But yeah, if I would have the choice. But yeah, I wouldn't mind doing that more also. Another advice to someone who starts out as a photographer is also to get your work seen by as many people as possible. Because also that leads to commissions, but also will develop your own work further if people get to know you better. So, and I think one thing is to participate also in competitions and or exhibition calls, but also to maybe to send your portfolio to editors, try to meet them. And what I found quite good also were like portfolio reviews.
Right.
They help me quite a bit also, even though they tend to be not so cheap, but still I think it's quite a good investment in terms what you get out of it.
Yeah, I've never done portfolio reviews before. I would like to. I'd like to do that. No, that is good advice. Thanks for adding that.
No worries.
I had a question on finding inspirations outside of photography. Like, are there other mediums that inspire you? Doesn't have to be a visual medium.
One thing that inspires me are actually podcasts also. I really love This American Life. I don't know if you know
Oh
that.
yeah. Love that one.
Yeah, I love that one. I love how they create moods. I love the stories they tell, the way
Yeah.
they tell them,
Yeah.
and also the choice of topics.
Yeah.
I find it very inspirational. Also, like the sister podcast is Serial.
Yeah.
Also, I really like that.
Yes.
I think the most recent one is actually on a whale.
Yeah, the big whale.
Yeah,
Or-
oh
or-
God, the good whale.
Good whale, that's the one.
I've
Yeah.
listened to it. It was so, oh my God. It really touched me.
I did not expect to cry
Yeah.
on that one.
I was like, I couldn't even stand it midpoint. I'm like, I needed to Google. Like, first I thought I'm not Googling what happened to this whale in the end.
Yeah.
But I couldn't stand it anymore. I was like, okay, what happened in the end?
Yeah. That was a really good one. Yeah. Yeah, and the narration and how they carry the story is really good.
Yeah. I think, to be honest, I would like to listen also to more photography podcasts. I think they're slightly sometimes stressing me more because it's like, I really think while I think sometimes it's very inspiring to hear other people's practices and other people's journeys.
Yeah.
Sometimes also there is this thing of comparing yourself. And so
Right.
sometimes I prefer also just to listen to something outside of photography.
That's fair.
So I mean, and then inspiration is obviously, photography exhibitions.
Yeah.
That I do definitely, and
Yeah.
also painting, but I do that less. But I do think also that can be very inspiring to look at
Yeah.
paintings from the past, but also contemporary painting.
Right. What was a recent exhibition you went to?
There was actually an exhibition in Hamburg. I would need to look up the name now, but it was like a contemporary painter also.
Okay.
Actually also quite figurative, so that it was like he used actually photographs that he blew up and he sort of copied them. I don't know if you can say copy, but he painted them.
Right.
But I found it very inspirational in the sense of like the compositions he chose, that I thought, wow, I would have never chosen that image to paint. Anyways, it was for me very inspiring, that also.
Oh, nice. I'm quite interested in a person evolving or a creative evolving, right? Like you've been doing it for a while now and you've done multiple different projects, worked on commercial work and all that. How would you say that you have evolved as a photographer? And what are some of the things you've realized as like, okay, this is an important thing that, key takeaways, let's put it that way.
Key takeaways, bullet points. Well, I mean,
I'm not expecting a bullet point, but yes.
I don't know, key takeaways. I mean, I think it's just...
Or we can just talk about how do you think you've evolved as a photographer?
I think it's... I think exactly. I think everyone evolves so differently, and I think, as I said before, when I left university, I was very open to photography and what I like,
Right.
because I liked so many things.
Yeah.
Hence, also I approach things very open, which I still do, but I think I know now more. How should I put it? Like, for instance, strawberries in winter, where I photographed food production.
Yeah.
And I photographed it in a very deadpan style
Uh-huh.
with a large format camera, because I wanted to be also quite objective and I wanted to keep the distance. And I think it works really well with that project.
Yeah.
And in fact, actually, it was also quite a successful project in the sense of exhibitions and publications.
Yeah.
But still, I feel for myself, I don't identify so much with that project anymore. Like, for me, I wouldn't go now and shoot something in a deadpan aesthetic.
Right.
So for me, that's sort of like a development that I feel I prefer to shoot more emotional. I feel also more drawn to lyrical images. I really like if there's something else in the image, not just the information.
Right.
I also feel in recent years I got much more interested in light.
Right.
In the past, I liked a lot, like also overcast days, which also can be still nice. I'm not saying I'm against it, but I wouldn't. Yeah, I think now I'm much more inspired by like sunrise and sunset and blue hour and the shifting hues during that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think I guess I photograph a little bit more personal now. While in the past I was more topic driven, maybe also. That
Right.
I wanted to do something about food production, and then I went out to document that,
Yeah.
which is very different than going around in your neighborhood and
Yeah. Yeah.
capturing whatever catches your attention.
Yeah. And then finding meaning in that.
Exactly.
I think you partly answered my next question, which is, what do you look for in an image or a project? If you were to expand, what would you say?
I think that on one hand, it communicates something. Like, it communicates like it could be as simple as just a mood, or it could tell a story. It could communicate an information. But I think especially important for me is that it creates like an emotional response also. That one feels touched in a way by it. Like, one gets curious looking at the image, or feels empathy, or feels. I mean, there's such a wide range, and sometimes maybe also one doesn't know what one feels. Like, some images also touch me, and I don't feel, yeah, that makes me feel this. But I mean, it does make me feel something.
Right.
And I think that's something I'm looking for in my images also. That, for instance, I think in the Hackney Marshes also at some point there was that I thought, okay, I want to also show the animals that are in the marshes, but that I don't just then photograph like a heron.
Yes.
But that I also photograph it in a way that there are other layers in that image. So it's also, as I said, for me, I call it like lyrical quality, but so that there's another thing in that image which goes beyond the information having a heron.
Right. Yeah, I think I remember the image you're talking about. Is that's the one with bushes or leaves on both sides?
Exactly.
Are they lit by? Did you use flash there or?
No. It was just, he was like in the heron was in the middle of an underpass, so it's sort of like a tunnel.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a gorgeous photo. Sorry, I haven't been out here shooting in a long time, so just seeing all the boats and the different things makes me want to come back with my camera.
That's good. Yeah, it's one of my favorite places here, and I'm a lot in Victoria Park. You are not?
Well, we try to. My wife and I. We have 1.5-year-old now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she's
Exciting.
very exciting. She's awesome. We often tell each other, "Hey, we made a good one."
That's good. That's good. And what do you do professionally?
I work as a data analyst.
So very different.
Very different. I've been doing that for a long time now. Like I said, I did take a year break in 2019, and I wanted to see if I can do photography full time. And at the end of that year, I hated it.
Of the master? Or the year
no,
after
the year of me trying to be a full-time photographer.
Yeah, I guess that's...
And I think I didn't even have the time to sit and think what was happening. And then COVID happened, and I had loads of time, and I realized, okay, this is not sustainable.
In 2019, but you did your master's in 2010.
No, my master's was in finance, and then I worked in finance for
I thought you did your master's in photography.
No. No, I have no
I thought you did your master's in
photography
photography.
education whatsoever.
That's why I didn't know the school. I was like, I don't know that.
Fair enough. Yeah, my bad. I should have mentioned what I did my master's in. I did that, and then I was working in finance and consulting for a while, and then I fell in love with photography, and at some point I was like daydreaming about photography at work, and I was like, this is not good. So let me try to do it full time. And for all the reasons we already discussed, I hated it. And when COVID happened, it gave me enough time to sort of sit down and think, and okay, this is what was happening, and so the next time I do it, I won't make that mistake of jumping in and or not doing personal work. So
it's
and here
just
we are.
really hard to keep the balance, and also I guess if you have kids, it's another strain. You know?
Oh yeah, it was way more easier.
I think it's another, because I don't have kids, for me it's just easier to...
No, the time is not yours anymore, and it's
also a different responsibility in terms financially.
So right now I do that data analyst stuff full time, and then I try to do this in any time I get. Sometimes I don't get to do anything for a few weeks, but that's how it is. So
it's always finding the balance, what one works for one, and I don't know.
Yeah, and then some days like I would have a free day, but I would have had a terrible night of sleep, and then I would just not want to do much and take it easy.
No, that's what I felt when I was doing so much architectural photography. Then I would have like 2 days, and I was just so exhausted. And then in my case also, then I think that was another thing, because I was photographing.
Right.
So I didn't have the urge to kind of go out and photograph. So I kind of felt I don't want to go now to photograph. So I guess that's also maybe another thing. Advice, maybe I need to correct my advice. I don't know how you will do that. I don't know, you can also leave it. But just thinking about it more, maybe I think actually it is helpful to have a part-time job that is not photography. Because sometimes I think it can help, if you then do a wedding or something, then you kind of feel maybe less compelled to pick up your camera for your personal stuff.
That's true. That was definitely one of the reasons why when I was trying to do it full time, I didn't have the urge to go out in the evenings or the weekends to do other things, because I was just burnt out by using the camera or trying to pay the bills with it. I think that's valid. So you've done quite a few long form projects now. For people that want to do long form projects, or for people that started long form projects, what would be what advice would you give?
Well, I think firstly that you find something you're really interested in.
Yeah.
You really feel you want to find out maybe more.
Yeah.
Or like in my case, the last projects, like whatever, I love the marshes so much. And I want to capture that.
Yeah.
I think then also obviously that one needs to think financially. Like, you know, if you say, I want to do a long-term project in whatever, in the US, and then you kind of need to think, how to fund that more as opposed to if you live in Hackney and you do it in the marshes.
Yes.
So I think that's another thing that one is sort of realistic about, like the cost it involves, or things before about that, and then how to possibly finance that if you have like a bigger if you have a project somewhere else that involves also other people, maybe you really need to apply for funding.
Right.
But then also really to also find other people to show your work to, I think can be very helpful.
Yeah.
And I think also maybe not to compare yourself with others too much. Because I think also if you do a long-term project, sometimes it might feel very slow.
Yeah.
And others produce, like I think also with Instagram, I think Instagram can be incredibly helpful, but it can also put so much pressure in producing new stuff.
Right.
So, and sometimes maybe if you work on a longer term project and it doesn't lead to immediate content, and then others produce like a lot, I think it's very important to also free yourself of that and not to compare yourself and to but to really be prepared for the long run you're in if you're doing a long-term project.
Yeah, which is where it being something you're interested in will help a lot.
It's, I think, essential.
Yeah,
really.
essential,
I think you can't do, and for instance, probably that was also one of the reasons with strawberries in winter that I felt I'm done with it, because I mean I found it interesting.
Yeah.
Like to see where does our food come from, but I wasn't so passionate about it.
Right.
I mean, it was exactly, I think, because one can be interested in a lot of things, but I think you need to really love it.
Yeah.
And should be something quite meaningful for you.
Yeah.
You want to communicate.
Yeah. Wow, that's beautiful advice. Okay. As a photographer or as a person, what does success mean to you?
Money. No, I'm joking.
Exactly the answer I was after.
Success means, I think on one hand, it can be just like that I take an image I'm very happy with.
Yeah.
That I go out and I see something and everything comes together, the light and the angle and I don't know, the whole feel of it, that I go home and mostly I'm like the next day very excited to look at it again. I'm like, is it really so nice how I imagine it? Yeah. And that's for me like a huge success and also something that really keeps me going. And then if you have like a lot of those images, and then to put them together to a project, and that works, that's I think another big success. And I think if you then have people who kind of recognize that and say, wow, I love it, I want to do an exhibition with that, that's great. Or they want to publish it, or they say, I saw that, I really love that, I want that you photograph something. So I think but all these elements, I mean success for me.
Okay. There's almost like different layers and different levels of it.
I guess it's a different scale. I mean, I think, I couldn't say I think they're all equally important, because I think it's nice to take, I think those nice images, obviously that's nice if you take them, but if you don't really share them or you don't put them together as a project, then I think it's also, you will do that so long, or maybe you just do it on the side. But I think if you then share it and other people like it, that is nice. There's always this balance also of like feedback. Maybe if someone doesn't like it, also it means not that it's bad, but I think generally there is a tendency of like, when like a lot of people like something, that it tends to be good, and if a lot of people especially people you trust, let's say.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, they are also like in Instagram, especially these accounts with like so many followers, and I sometimes look at it and I kind of think, okay, really?
right.
So, and I think sometimes it's not necessarily, yeah, maybe people have also different taste.
Yeah, yeah. And what Instagram thinks people would want to see may not always be good
Yeah,
work.
exactly.
Um,
But I mean, yeah, Instagram aside, but as I said, I think if you look into exhibitions and publications,
Yes.
I think that is saying a little bit more about the work.
right, right. Of course, of course.
I love this part here also of the canal.
Ah, yes.
Those houses I also always found very interesting and always
Yeah,
very
this is.
photogenic.
Well, yeah, we've lived around here for almost all of our marriage now, 8 years.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, we used to walk along the canal way more before we had Jane.
Ah, yeah.
We did
Jane?
do that. Jane, that's our daughter.
Oh, that's cute.
And that's why I wanted to photograph along the canals and I was always curious about people that live on boats.
Yeah,
So
me too.
that's
I wanted to do a project about that once.
okay.
But yeah, I guess 1,000 other people did it already. I don't know. Plus, I don't know. I started
1001, that would be me. But yeah, no, I started it and I'm doing it. I am going through a phase of where am I with it now? And
yeah.
do I want to continue that, or do I want to expand it, or do I want to move on to something else? But it's like nonetheless, like I just love walking along here and taking photos of things.
And do you just go to people and say, hey, can I photograph you? Or do you set it up?
No, I just walk up to people and start talking, and it's never a quick, hey, can I take a photo of you? Click, go. It usually takes me at least half an hour, but I've sat and talked to people for 2 hours and not taken a photo before. I don't have the luxury of time now anymore. But yeah, they've been generally like really generous and friendly with their time and space. But yeah, anyway, but yeah, no, thank you so much for coming out and agreeing to do this. I really appreciate that.
No worries.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course.
For being interested in my work.
Yeah,
And
yeah, no, of course.
Let's see what the future brings.
All right, that's it for this conversation with Freya. I hope it was useful. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching and listening and supporting it. Feel free to share it with your community as well. And you'll be able to find Freya's work and links to her website and Instagram and all that in the description. Yeah, thank you. Bye.